Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Azure On Air. In the last episode, we discussed about the sessions lined up for the day 1 of Integrate 2022. As a continuation, we have got Lex and Mike throwing light on the sessions lined up for day 2 and day 3 of the best conference for Azure Integrate 2022. There is an interesting session by Samuel Katzbeck on managing the life cycle of your logic apps.
I think this is interesting. So we've got two sessions actually that are it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see how they overlap. So to me, we've got Samuel's life cycle one, and then I think
Mm-hmm.
Matthias is booked in for a session talking about long-lasting build and release for
Mm,
integration. So I'm going to make it. I'm
mm,
going to make a little bit of an assumption that they're kind of touching on this whole
mm-hmm.
DevOps and application lifecycle management space. I think actually we've got
Mm,
Alessandro's talking about DevOps a bit as well. So I think let's group them three together and talk about and assume
mm.
they're kind of touching similar areas. But I think that's a really, in a way, it's a really good thing because it's such a big area, such an
Yes.
area that customers struggle with,
Mm,
and so I think that whole like DevOps and automated build and deployment. But actually, I think if we take the
mm,
three areas. So what we've got, one's logic app focus,
mhm,
one's all of integration services, and then Matthias. I
mm,
guess that's wider scoped as well. So to me, the secret to being successful in the DevOps space is kind of
mhm,
recognizing that
mm,
build pipelines are just part of it. That
mm,
people focus most on that bit, but actually, being successful, you need to understand things about change management, managing the risk of change,
mhm,
um, and hopefully we'll have some good examples of people using pipelines and maybe
mm,
talking about things like pull requests and branching
mm,
in things like Git and stuff like that. Will be really interesting. But I think that hopefully there's a little bit of talk about the bigger picture as well. So I would guess that Matthias and Samuel might be touching a bit more on that. Just guessing what they might talk about
mm,
because they're talking about more of the life cycle. But the interesting one, like if we say Samuel's session, we talk about that. So the life cycle of a logic app. So
mm,
by life cycle, do I mean from the idea of needing to create one through development, test, deployment to production, support it in production, and then deprecating it when it's no longer needed? That'd be a really interesting session if that's kind of what it's covering, and even if it's just covering part of that. But it'd be interesting to see. Maybe he also means Lex. I don't know if
mm,
you've got the
mm,
abstract for this one or anything, because he might also mean like the under the
mm.
hood runtime experience of it or something as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, that would be very useful as well, like an holistic view on right from ideation till you deliver it to your customer support. Yes. So, Lex, say you have anything else to give us more information on this, Lex?
Yeah, let me read out the abstract from Samuel's session here. By the way, I'll see if you can have all those abstracts added to the site. That just gives some context. Logic App Standards has been generally available
Mm,
for a while. New built-in connectors are added, like the one for Cosmos DB, and more features are coming. One of the challenges when starting with something new is the lifecycle of it. In this session, we look at Logic App Standard lifecycle,
mm,
which is more than getting your workflows in place in your own app service plan. We investigate a couple of different perspectives, like create your app service plan and other resources using Bicep, handling
Yeah,
connection for building connectors, handling managed connectors, and Azure DevOps to handle building and releasing.
DevOps is indeed an key reason why a key advantage in Azure, but still there are a lot of gray areas that we need to learn and then um, like scale ourselves with. And these sessions, a set of sessions, are going to be incredibly helpful.
I think one of the things about maybe Alessandro's session, if he's specifically in the title said Azure
Mm,
integration services, then I think I was chatting with Kent actually the other day about
mm-hmm,
some of the challenges around DevOps, and I think that this maybe touches on the key thing
mm,
is that actually in the real world, when I build an integration solution,
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely is it just a logic app or two or three logic apps that solve the problem. It's not uncommon that you've got
Mm,
logic apps,
mm,
integration account, API management, service bus,
mm,
functions, and
mm,
they work together. So how do you actually do DevOps for all of that in a way that's effective, and that's why it's such a difficult area, I think, in reality.
mm, mm, mm. I understand.
Good sessions though. Be exciting to see what people cover in them.
Yeah,
I
and
think also just to shout out,
mm,
I think the last two integrates, Matthias has usually done some of my favourite sessions actually. I
mm-hmm.
I don't know if people remember this one, but one of my favourite sessions was when he did a session where basically just a pen and a kind of on a whiteboard on the computer and just drew everything as he went. That was really cool. I like
Yeah.
when somebody just does something a bit different, instead of like PowerPoint slides and demos, and he was actually just drawing it as he went through, and it was kind of like telling a story, which I always kind of find
Mm-hmm.
those interesting to listen to. So
And here comes in session interesting for BizTalk people. Yeah. Building hybrid integration solutions with BizTalk Server 2020 from Sandro.
let's where was the other session? So I think we've got two. Is there two Biz Talk sessions if I remember right? So we've got Sandro and Stephen. Yeah. So let's talk about those together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do it.
Did you have something you wanted to add there, Lex?
Indeed, Mike. Both sessions are about BizTalk, and they are well. Stephen's session is more going to be about migrating
Mm-hmm.
to Azure. So he will explain the driving factors around a migration from BizTalk to Azure, and he will focus on the different migration scenarios. So, well, we might see that he is discussing how you can take
Mm-hmm.
your BizTalk virtual machines from on-premise and install them,
Wow.
provision them in,
Mm-hmm.
in Azure. So continue running a BizTalk, but then in Azure
Great.
virtual machines. But besides
Mm-hmm.
that, of course, it's also possible to start using all kinds of serverless technologies. So that could be the kind of session, the kind of topics that he would bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Sandro's session, on the other side, is more about hybrid integration. So not using just BizTalk in your integrations.
Exactly. I can connect this to many of the scenarios that I have heard from the customers. Like either it's not like do or die situation. Like either I go full blown on cloud or I'll remain in the stock itself. It's a hybrid. We are in the hybrid world, and this session is going to be of um, like it's going to give a lot of insights to that segment of people who are in consideration of cloud but staying in the stock. So there is a session by Dan Toomey on data mapping in the Microsoft Cloud. So what can we expect here, Mike?
Yeah, I think this will be another good one. So,
Mm-hmm.
data mapping's always been one of the sort of challenges we've had. Integration accounts, we've had,
Mm-hmm.
the cost model for an integration account's always been a bit of a challenge for some people. But actually, there's a lot of options in there. I think you've got Liquid XSLT,
Mm-hmm.
you've got BizTalk Mapper that you can use with Azure. You've got you can do stuff with functions. You've got compose shapes. There's loads of different ways you can do stuff depending on what you map and how complicated it is and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm.
And I think to me, it'd be really good to see Dan talk about the different options when you might use one versus the other, what some of the pros and cons are, and what he kind of
Mm.
finds works well in the field.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be really quite cool. I think, yeah,
Mm. Yes, sounds good. Great. So there are a couple of sessions on tips to secure the integrations and one on secure the like integration from Nino, and there is a talk by Toon on 10 favorite Azure API management tips and tricks.
we've got API management deep dive. I don't think we've got a confirmed speaker from that, but I'm assuming that'll be someone from the product team.
Hmm.
I know, well, I mean, usually in the past it's been Vlad or Meow who've talked on that session, but I guess
Mm-hmm.
one of the interesting thing will be maybe if Tom might be involved this year,
Mm-hmm.
because I think he's joined Microsoft recently from Codit, so
Yeah.
interesting to see if Tom might be around.
Mm-hmm.
But Toon's session will be really good. So if anybody who doesn't follow Toon's blog, I'd thoroughly recommend checking
Mm.
it out. Toon's been doing a lot of coaching,
Yeah.
and he always blogs about really interesting things. And he spends a lot of time talking about API management. So if Toon's talking about his favorite tips and tricks, then I'm going to be listening to that one definitely because they're going
Mm.
to be common things people are going to come across,
Mm.
and
Mm.
there's definitely going to be some things that'll save you some pain, help you do things a bit better and stuff like that. And it's going to be stuff from the real world.
Mm.
So that's definitely one not to miss.
Definitely. Yeah. So then comes our session on how can I make it easier to support my integration platform with Serverless 360, Mike.
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about an update of what's been happening in serverless 360 world.
Mm-hmm.
Some new features we've been adding, why people want to use it, what problems does it solve. We're going to talk about we've got the business applications, we've got BAM, and we've got Azure Documenter, are the
Mm-hmm.
three key areas in there. So I think in the integrate time scale, we should have a
Mm.
couple of handy new features coming out.
Yeah.
I think we're just going to do a lap over them. But I think the key thing we want to get across, if we think about
Mm-hmm.
some of the sessions people are going to be talking about, one of the themes people will see as they go through it is um, I've got all these different products on Azure, whether it be Event Grid, Logic Apps, Functions, API Management. They all make up the iPaaS platform.
Mm-hmm.
And when I build a solution, how do I manage it? Because I've got all these different things that might be in different resource groups, different subscriptions, and let's say I've got 10 functions, one queue in one solution, and then I've got four queues and three logic apps in another.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the problem is, it's how do you support that and know these things grouped together and manage and monitor them as a solution rather than just a bunch of sort of spread out
Services.
components. And
Mm.
that's really
Mm.
the use case that
Yeah.
serverless is about. So we want to just really talk about,
Mm.
what the problem is, how does serverless help you tackle it, and
Yeah.
just give people an update on what we've been doing and what some of our plans are. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then should we cover Nino's? I think we missed Nino's session when we talked about
Mm-hmm.
the list you mentioned before, didn't we? So Nino's going to be
Mm.
talking about top tips as well as Tune. So Nino's, I'm sure if anyone's been at Integrate before, people have definitely seen Ninos because he's been there at most Integrate
Mm.
summits in the past.
Yeah.
And Nino's doing a lot in the security space these days, and he often talks about red, green, what was it, red team, blue team attacking each other, and kind of how you
Mm.
do the attacks and how you mitigate them, and it's kind of this sort of guerrilla warfare type security sort of stuff he's done in the past. But I think you know Nino's become a really top expert in that security area, and I think if he's talking about integration solutions in particular, so Nino covers the whole of Azure from a
Yeah.
security perspective. But it's great to
Mm.
get the chance to say, right, what are the things for integration customers that
Mm.
your top tips are going to be, and it'd be interesting. I mean, I'm not going to kind of guess what I think he might cover because I think there's probably a couple of things I might guess, but when
Mm.
it's Nino, there's always going to be a couple of things that you probably haven't even thought of. So that
Mm-hmm.
could be really interesting. I think so. I'm speaking at an event
Yeah.
recently where he was talking about a couple of
Mm.
vulnerabilities and how we could
Mm-hmm.
mitigate them and what the risks were and stuff. And there was a couple of them that were things I'd never really thought about. Which it's always great to have an opportunity to get somebody who's deep diving in a specific area who can tell you things that help develop your knowledge, develop your skills, so you can
Mm. Mm.
kind of kind of cover that without having to have the experts come in. But that's what Integrate's about, isn't it? It's getting
Yeah,
people who know
absolutely. Mm.
loads about all their specialist areas and then helping everybody have a wider
Mm-hmm.
sort of degree of knowledge.
That's wonderful. I think pretty much we talked about all the sessions that has been
I
lined up
think
for
we've
Integrate.
missed a couple as well. I think on the
Mm-hmm.
Monday afternoon, I think we've got Eldert and the Event Hub ones. I think maybe I
Mm.
know the Microsoft sessions where they're going to be, product updates and
Yeah.
deep dives around that service bus events and messaging area. So I think I'm assuming there'll be just deep dive talking about what you can do, what some of the scenarios are. I mean, Elder's always a really good speaker. The other guys,
Mm.
I'm not sure if I know them as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up. But I think the one that stands out for me off the list as possibly something that's a little bit different is the Event Hub and Stream Analytics.
Mm.
Um, so the other two are deep dives. They're going to cover a lot of different scenarios with Event Grid and Service Bus specifically. But I'm quite interested in the one to say, all right, so Event Hub and Stream Analytics, what
Mm.
are people doing with that scenario? What can you do? What are the opportunities there?
Yeah.
And I think that that maybe I think we're really interested to see like
Yes.
what.
The potential of those services. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because Stream Analytics has been out for
Mm.
years, and I've never really had much of an opportunity to work with a company who's done a lot with it. So I'll be
Mm.
interested to see what kind of people are kind of what kind of things people are doing with it, and where
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft see things happening in that space. That'd be quite interesting.
Awesome. So pretty much by now, our listeners would have understood what they can expect from Integrate. Thank you, Mike and Lex, for adding in your inputs on the sessions lined up for Integrate 2022. It seems pretty interesting and useful for all those who are working in the integration space. And listeners, do join us either in person or online. And because Integrate 2022 is going to be on hybrid mode, and we hope to get the maximum insights out of it. Thank you, Mike and Lex.
Covey.co